Sit right down and I'll show you where my dreams began.
I'm Michael Dugan, your culinary host, guiding you through the chef's journey. Join me at the chef's table, where you'll experience stories, secret sauces, signature dishes, and kitchen disasters. I wanted to dedicate this episode to my sister Kathleen, who is an engineer, but her real passion is music and beekeeping. Joining us on the show today is a baker and owner, Felicity Rose, the creative force behind the Beekeep Baking Company, where every dessert is a testament to real flavors and natural goodness. Felicity, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks, Michael. Glad to be part of it.
Yeah, excited to have you here.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit, let's kind of start and dive a little bit into your childhood. What was it like growing up for you? And was there anything that you remember cooking or eating, or how you were connected to food at an early age?
When I was younger, I think like the greatest impact that also kind of influenced my company too is probably going to like my great grandma's house around like the holidays and, just visiting in general. Cause, she was just the wonderful grandma that baked all the cookies and the little like cinnamon rolls and things like that.
Cool.
So yeah, like every time we'd go over there, it was just, she'd always just have like those little tins just ready for us. And especially around Christmas time with those little like Christmas tree spritz cookies and everything like that. And it was always fun just sitting in the backseat of the car with like this whole thing of cookies just all to yourself, Wow. Yeah. So that was really fun. I just love the idea that food always like brought people together. And even as a kid, like you see that, right? Like, like going out to dinner with your family or like having a birthday or, like a big celebration or maybe like a graduation or something like that. It always revolved around like creating a moment with each other. And I feel like a lot of the memories we have as kids are with food, walking down the street with your friends to the corner store for like a bag of Cheetos or something. It doesn't have to be like a fancy steak. It could just be even like those little candy pops or something you'll get at the park or something. That aspect of my childhood was always circled around those kind of gatherings, those sweet moments with family. It was nice.
Any favorite cookies? Anything you remember from her?
My great grandma? Yeah, it probably would have to be those little like green Christmas tree cookies, the little sprinkles and stuff. I don't know. They're just magical to taste. But then kind of getting real with things too. It's like, growing up as a child, I actually grew up in kind of like a poor household too at times where it kind of put the importance of appreciate what you have in front of you and waste not, want not kind of scenario.
Definitely.
My mom would make dinner, but then if there just happened to not be enough for the parents, so to say, like, just make sure the kids are good. And then the parents would eat kind of last kind of thing sometimes. But I feel like that also put a lot of importance again on why even like in moments like that, where it was important because it brought us closer together in a weird sense, because it's like now that I'm older and I see that as an adult, you're offering a part of you to nurture someone else. That also alone is a really cool concept. What food, even like as in your childhood, whether it's with fun moments at like the public pool or a celebration at like a fancy restaurant or something, or even just behind the scenes in your own childhood home where it still brings you together in one sense or another. Like a mother is still able to provide for her child, or a child is able to celebrate their birthday with a cake with all their friends. It all has that same concept of a communal bond between everybody. It was nice.
Yeah.
That's what I loved about it. And that's kind of what I gained from a child that I kind of carried with me as an adult is you just don't forget the importance of like what food is, right? Like it nurtures you, it brings you together. It has all this like other, I guess, metaphorical concepts to it on top of the taste and the aesthetic of it and everything else, like the exciting part of it too. It's just a nice combination of both that you can enjoy as an adult that as a kid you don't quite understand. Kid cuisine was probably like my favorite meal back then. The brain freeze with a little brownie in there.
Oh, wow.
But then as an adult, you start seeing like all those like cooking shows and stuff where they're like, okay, now let's elevate this. What can we bring a childhood favorite into like a 5-star Michelin restaurant?
Right. What was your favorite candy growing up?
I probably had a few. I've always liked Kit Kats just because they're kind of fun to eat.
Okay.
I remember my dad, he would always buy me those big hunk bars and Charleston chews and things like that.
Yeah. I love the Charleston chew. That came to mind when you were talking. I was like, Charleston chew.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I loved those things, little old school candies and stuff. I love those.
Cool. So when you're thinking about your childhood back then, as a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I don't know. It's whatever moments I was in. Like, I probably felt like I wanted to be a dancer at one point and maybe just like follow what my mom did and work for the state. Or it wasn't until I got much into cooking until like my later years, like probably like maybe like my teenage years. And
tell us a little bit about when you got into cooking. What was that like? What kind of things were you cooking? Where was your mindset?
I was very amateur. I remember like when I first moved out of my parents' house and, I was going to college, living on my own, doing this kind of thing. I was trying to make like these weird little breakfast sandwiches for my roommates at the time. And I tried to do them in the oven. I had no cooking experience whatsoever. I burnt these little English muffins. I made these sad little like red peppers, all this thing. I found out my roommate didn't even like red peppers to begin with. So she wasn't too stoked about it, but she tried them anyways. And it was a sad looking dish. It was whatever you think a breakfast sandwich should look like, and then turn it inside out and then make a sad face at it. And then that's where it is.
Yeah.
But then you go from that, learning the ropes, understanding what ingredients go well together, which flavors complement one another, and then kind of creating like the scene on a plate that tells a story. My trash little English muffin breakfast sandwiches, there's still a story to tell. It wasn't a nice one. It was kind of a horror story, but...
When I think about horror stories, you just brought something to mind. I was in college and I had a very interesting roommate, right? He was like a bodybuilder, but he was an engineer.
Oh, nice.
And he would be cooking. And I was studying upstairs and I came down the stairs. And as I'm coming in the kitchen, I hear this, ouch, ouch, ouch.
Oh, no.
And I look over and he's turning a grilled cheese with his fingers.
Oh.
I came to realize he did not know how to cook. He'd never used a spatula before. He didn't know what to do. I taught him how to make breakfast and grilled cheese and lots of different things, but it was kind of funny at the time, but it wasn't, you know what I mean? Because it's like, he never had that skill.
Right. It's so crazy. Like looking back on that, like I was your roommate at the time. I had no idea what I was doing.
Yep.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's just wild to think about like where you start and then where you go.
When you went to school, what did you go to school for?
I went to school. Funny enough, I actually ended up starting off as a theater major. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
As I was a kid going to like dancing and singing and things like that, I actually sort of tried to follow that pursuit in college starting off. It wasn't, I think, where my passions ultimately ended up becoming though. It's like while I was going to college for theater, I worked at the Subway on campus. So like in between classes and stuff, I would like go and work, their little auditorium deli thing or whatever.
Okay.
The Subway, it would just have, I swear, it'd be like 400 students or something at a time. Like it was just back-to-back lines nonstop. But I found that so exciting.
Oh.
A guy in line that had a ukulele, I would tell him to play the ukulele to keep everyone entertained.
Oh, I love it.
One of those experiences, escalate, learning how to operate around food.
Okay.
That was really exciting. I started off in theater, but then that kind of like transgressed into possibly being a teacher, possibly going into computers. I just kept jumping majors because I just never felt like I was in the right place.
A lot of us do that.
You try something out, like your inspiration might be in one area, but then you see it's just not quite the right fit. So then you try something else. Initially, I liked the idea of telling a story. I liked the idea of kind of encapsulating these characters and bringing life into them, and then just breathing in this air of wonder into the character that other people can perceive, bring them into that experience with you. It wasn't a job that I felt like it could pay the bills, that sense of like wonderment with it. But then at the same time, you also have to have the little bit of the reality checks coming through too. Do I want to dive deep into this? If I go into theater, am I willing to move to, Hollywood or New York City and then keep going further with it? That major, that I didn't. Like, that's not the path I wanted to take. These weren't the steps I wanted to go for. And then so I transitioned into
Okay.
something else,
Right.
Then that's kind of where I went. The computer science area, it didn't have kind of like that communal storytelling almost, where I got in theater that brought me a lot of happiness and joy.
Mm,
So, you know what I mean? So it's like,
I do. So as we go along, how did you get involved in the restaurant business? So you were working in Subway, but you worked in some other places as well.
I have, yeah. So it all,
Okay.
so I started at Subway, and I grew up in California.
Okay.
I started at Subway, and then I found this other sandwich spot. It's called Boudin Sourdough Bakery Company.
Uh-huh.
So I learned a lot of bread making there, and I learned a lot about
Cool.
and I learned, rather than kind of like that commercialized Subway aspect of it, I feel like with Subway, it taught me like the basics, right? It's like, like temperature control, quality, cleanliness, all of that, right? It was camp into getting the food industry. And then we came to Boudin. It was like, you bring all of that there, but then you also have fluid aspect of customer service. A dining room, you're expoing, you have a back of the house, you have the front of the house. There's a dynamic between the two that you marry to create like this environment for the consumer to create memories. It was kind of cool with that place, essentially cultivating me into being that person where I was still finding connection with the people, that wonderment, that creativity. When it comes to the creativity aspect of it, it's really all the plating, how you're providing the service and everything like that.
Oh, definitely.
Words, how you're describing the plates, it's, is that just a burger, or is that just a nice, savory, juicy cut of meat in between two slices of garlic toast or something? You get really creative with the whole thing, and it just creates this excitement around it, and I felt like with that place, I feel like that's where like my passion for food really just skyrocketed and grew, because I love bread. I'm a carb girl for life. I'll admit that. And it was really inspiring for me too, because they have such a rich culture and they have such a rich history, that essentially the theme of the restaurant and like what their mission statements are, it kind of tied into all of those things that I found important at the time. It's like storytelling, for example, or, that creativity that I was looking for, that human connection with it all, the, people oriented, but also with kind of like this logical, practical background of like, service operations, essentially.
It's funny because I started at McDonald's when I was in my early 20s, I think. I'd left college and I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I started flipping burgers for 6 months. And then I found out about this amazing country club called the Bear Creek Country Club that was opening up looking for prep cooks. And so when I went there, it was fine dining. It was, wow, I'd never experienced anything like it. It was so creative, so interesting, so fascinating, so artistic. And I befriended the Romanian baker. He became a friend of mine. So he was sharing all his recipes with me. And I would go home and cook them. And I'd have my parents and I would cook for them. And I learned to saute. The way you learn to saute is you take frozen peas and you put them in a pan and you flip them up in the air and they go all over the floor. And then a week later, you've learned to saute.
Yeah, because you're tired of picking up the peas off the floor.
But those are the things that, take you from flipping burgers to doing something really creative and meaningful.
You got to start somewhere.
So I can sense that from you. And so from Boudin, was it? What did you do next?
And then after that, I worked more at it was like a higher scale restaurant. It was called Luco Restaurant in downtown Sacramento. Okay. Yeah. And that place, I feel like that place was another moment of growth for me too. Cause at this place, it was, like now I'm at like a restaurant, right? You have like servers, you have hostess, there's bartender, cocktailers, like the whole shebang, right? Reservations out the wazoo. You had celebrities rolling in, a rotating menu based on the season. So they had like fresh ingredients all over. And that was amazing too for me, because it really just showed me like the step up and like restaurant management and like the flow of service and everything. And again, it really built upon like the customer experience that I was really drawn to, cause like you have people that come here cause like, they want to make a memory, whether it's like they're in a bad mood and they want to uplift their spirits a bit, or,
Sure.
maybe they're on their first date, so there's a lot of romance in the air. It could be anything. Like the walls are collecting these stories, and then that energy is just astounding sometimes. Like you can feel it, and the vibrating effect with the rush of the lunch service, or like the dinner rush, like the plates are flying, people are yelling, we're doing this, we're doing that. And it was just so exciting and just so exhilarating. Kind of get like this high during that time. And only people in the food industry know what I'm talking about. Oh yeah. The flow of time is obsolete at that moment. It's really just you and what you're doing. And again, it's kind of like a dance, it was kind of like what I was into when I was a kid. At a certain point, I think, what did I say? I think one time I said, when I started serving, I said like, I don't want to serve, I want to flow or something. Like you're so confident in what you're doing. Like, exactly every step, everything you need to do. And like, you're in that moment. That rush is no longer like consuming you. It's almost a roaring river of just rapid decision making, but it's like calming at that sense too. You just become part of it. The next thing you know, 5 hours pass by and your shift is over,
I remember, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
We'll be back after a quick break.
You don't know what to make for dinner again? You want to explore new cuisines, but you don't have time? What if you have new inspirations and we provide you with the ingredients and recipes? We know you want to travel, learn new foods, explore the world, but life's responsibilities keep getting in your way. What if you can bring those experiences to your home neatly packed into a box? Ladybug Collective is a subscription service that finds real people from around the world to create beautifully curated assortments of recipes, ingredients, and cultural content. Not only do we include cultural ingredients, but also a set of detailed recipe cards with instructions on how to use them. Each box also has a QR code that when scanned takes you to tons more global exploration to immerse yourself in. Everything from film to lifestyle, art to history, it all can be found here. Live your life to the fullest. Subscribe now and don't miss out on the next cultural adventure. Ladybug Collective. Always exploring.
Yeah, because I've worked in the kitchen too, and it's the same flow, whether you're front of house or back of the house, we all experience it in our own ways, Yeah, working in the kitchen too. Like I liked working in the kitchen because you get that huge adrenaline rush from just like that mad service, like the chicken machines are whirring, again, everyone's like shouting for this, shouting for that. It's, you're either consumed by it or you flourish within it, Yeah. And only the strong survive for sure.
It's a natural high. I remember it. And I miss it in some ways. I have dreams about it sometimes. They're not always good dreams, but most of them are pretty good dreams, about being on the line and working on the line and doing a lot of really cool stuff. As we go along in your journey, now you have this idea, right? And you want to start, is it a bakery? Tell us about the Beekeep now. Let's kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, funny enough. So like when it came to my company, I initially wanted it to be a sandwich company because I felt like a lot of my experience was in like sandwich making, right? Like with Subway, with Boudin. I kind of felt like that was like my wheelhouse at the time. But even though I kind of felt like that's where my strengths were, what really inspired me to spark the business was when I created like my first tray of my baklava. And when I first had baklava, I think I was probably like my early 20s or something. I first had it, and surprisingly enough, I was actually disappointed in the one that I had. I don't remember where I got it from, but I was just like, you know what? I think I can make this better. And so I looked up a couple of recipes online. I kind of like, it was almost like, like it's almost like picking apples from a tree, I guess. Like, like, oh, this one looks good. This one looks good. Let's make a pie together with it. And then only in this sense, my pie is my baklava. And so I created this little recipe, I gave it a go, and it was like a harmonious blend of everything delicious in one single bite. And I was blown away by it. And it was something I wanted to share with people. I was like, oh, like, let's give this a go. And so I remember my boyfriend at the time, he worked at this television station. And so I made him a tray to like bring to, to his coworkers, the newscast and everything else like that. And I remember he told me when he came back home, he said he put the tray on like his boss's desk. And then when he came back to go check on his boss, like half the tray was already gone.
I love it.
Because he just liked it so much. And yeah, it was kind of cool. Just seeing that effect it had, it's like, it kind of brought like that sense of excitement, and it kind of brought a story with it too. And again, these are all kind of like, they're like reoccurring themes. I feel like with things that I've always strived for, but never seemed to have succeeded in with whatever like major, so to say, I was trying to strive for in life, Yeah. And then, so even though I wasn't getting the sandwiches, I was just like, but you know what? It's like, I feel like this baklava is like where it's at. And then, so I wanted to start small. The experience I had was like my personal experience working at all these different places at all these different levels. Experiences were becoming more vast with the different types of like restaurants and food operations. But I knew I wasn't like ready for that big of a scale. Like, okay, well, let me just start small. And I started with the baklava, and the baklava is what kind of led to the name of the company and like my themes and everything. I was talking to someone about it, kind of going through names and stuff. Cause like, okay, it's like with the baklava, it's like, you have like honey, there's bees involved. What kind of aspect can bring all of these together? We're kind of going over everything. And then I remember he said like, it's like, oh, what about the Beekeep? And then all of a sudden the tagline was brought to life. And I was like, the Beekeep.
I love it.
Where we be keeping it real. And then it's like, okay, if we're keeping it real, how are we going to keep it real? Okay, all natural ingredients. That was kind of like the next step was like, okay, so if I'm doing all natural ingredients, let's keep it clean. Let's keep it like no preservatives, no artificial flavorings, that kind of thing. Which helped because like with the baklava, it fit all of that already. And I was like, okay, great. Well, now that we have like this bee theme going on, how about we kind of dive more into that, honey desserts. And that stemmed into like, okay, if I'm using honey desserts, how do I get the community involved? Oh, let's get these local farmers going in here with their honey, and then kind of showcase that into the desserts. So then it was almost like, it just like from this one little idea, it started kind of like branching out into like these different areas. Developed like all of those like themes I've wanted from other aspects that I was striving for, but finally into like one space, and it's like I had that sense of community going on there. I had that the personal connections I was making with people with it. It was telling a story because it's like with this dessert, it was really cool because not many people are aware of it, and then it's also kind of fun because like then it becomes like a talking point for people. You're creating stories with it because it's starting conversations, and conversations create memories. It was just such a proud achievement when I finally turned that idea into a reality. Thought about the Beekeep in California. It wasn't until I moved to Washington where I decided to like get it out of the idea state. Because I always like to remind myself that ideas are safe, and as long as the idea is as long as the company remains an idea, it will never fail. And it was just one of those moments where, if in order to succeed, you mustn't fear failure. And so once I just took that dive in, turned this idea into like a tangible form where it becomes vulnerable, inspired me and encouraged me to keep moving forward with it. Now that it's real, now that it's here, now there's like physical people involved, monetary choices to be made. It's just a little seed that I'm trying to water and grow from, something to everything. It was remarkable how everything just kind of like skyrocketed and aligned. Within that time, I finally jumped in and said, yes, I'm ready to move forward with this. Let's turn it into something great.
I wanted to know too, as we're going along. So once you created the Beekeep, your baking company, what kind of offerings do you have?
Definitely increased since like the first time that I like started the business. When I first started the business, like I said, I wanted to start it small because I was going to keep it safe. I started with the baklava, and then the baklava led to my gourmet marshmallows that I also make with honey. Yeah, so I do a honey marshmallow line, various flavors, but they all have honey instead of corn syrup, fake sugars, or anything like that. and they're pretty good. They're pretty good. Yeah, they're super soft. They're super fluffy and airy. They just melt perfectly in like a cup of coffee, and that's what I love about all my desserts too. There's a sense of familiarity with it until you take that first bite, and then all of a sudden, oh, this is different. Yeah. My favorite moment is whenever someone like tries a dessert in front of me and they have like that raised eyebrow after like a half a second,
I would have, because I was with Emma and I tried your brownie.
Yeah. At the Newcastle event.
Oh, at the Newcastle event, Newcastle, Washington. And oh my gosh, it tasted like lava cake to me,
Thank you.
Which is one of my favorite desserts in the world. And I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, it's not a brownie. It's beyond the brownie.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really cool. And I know that you have those, you have the baklava.
Yeah. I have the brownies, cookies. My coffee cake's really popular right now. Yeah. I'm currently working on a few cakes right now. I'm trying to expand into cakes now. Okay. Basic cakes right now. I'm not making unicorns and stingrays. But if you just want like a nice, simple, basic cake that you can like, again, create these memories together with, but also have like real good taste and real good flavor with authenticity behind it. That's my next steps in my product line.
Oh, geez. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Your desserts are very unique. Like you said, I mean, when I tried it, it wasn't what I was expecting. I was just expecting a brownie. And I'm like, this is different. This is very unique. You would have seen me raise an eyebrow. I was Can you tell me what your greatest joy is about this journey being an entrepreneur?
Oh my gosh. It's gotta be the people. It really is. Yeah. Like just the connections you make, the experiences that you learn from it, like the mentors I've picked up along the way. I'm forever grateful in pursuing every day by investing in this. Cause it's like, it's just one of those things where it's like, the more I invest in my company, the more it seems to give back. It's filled my world with like so many wonderful people that have inspired me and encouraged me to grow. And in that sense, it also sparks just the mental growth in it and like the confidence building and just seeing your hard work come into fruition. And then I felt like a sense of pride for the first time, like with my business.
Oh, that's great.
I think I was doing like the Federal Way Farmers Market at the time or something. It was like the first farmers market I was doing. And I don't remember how late it was in the night. But I remember it was like the first one I did. It was the wee hours of the morning. But I was sitting there, I was like washing sheet pans in the sink. All of a sudden, like this big smile just right across my face. And
That's so awesome.
I was so confused though, Michael. I was so confused. I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I smiling, washing like these sheet pans in this scalding hot water? This must be what pride feels like.
Wow.
Felt like in that moment, like I've never like experienced something, I don't know, of what you've accomplished and like how far you've come. The build up led to like that moment. I was proud.
I know exactly what you're talking about because the podcast for me, 2.5 years now. And I remember when I started and I look back and now when I meet people and I connect to people, I have friends, chefs and friends all over the world. A shout out to my friend Gunawan because he'll probably listen to this because he's an amazing baker. Oh my God. He's also an international pastry chef and he just finished judging an international competition of chefs, right?
Oh, that's great. That's so cool.
He just launched a restaurant in Indonesia. We're going to do a check-in because I'm going to do these check-ins with all my guests and see what they've been up to for the past year or so. And he's in Indonesia, right? So we've got this time difference challenge. And oh my gosh, he's the most genuine guy. And he's so focused on hospitality, but he's also got this incredible talent as a chef. And, that was an aha moment for me, right? Our friendship.
Yeah.
And
especially Indonesia. Yeah. Like that's incredible.
Yeah. And he originally was in Australia, then he moved to Indonesia. So I interviewed him in Adelaide, Australia, but then he moved to Indonesia. But it's those moments you just sit back and you go, wow, this is so cool. And you reflect back on it.
That never would have happened if you didn't take that first step into like pursuing this,
Right.
Yeah.
It was a risk.
Oh, big risk. Yeah.
A lot of like personal risk and, imposter syndrome, getting over that and just a lot of things. but I do it for my guests.
You're telling their stories. You're giving them a voice.
I don't do it for myself. And I realized that very quickly. And so that's what helped me elevate, because it was like, it's for them. Some people come on and they're really nervous, and, we walk through the process. It's kind of like with your ingredients and your desserts, they tell stories, right? Well, this is a different kind of story. You're a cultivator of stories by baking, which is pretty cool.
Everything I put into these desserts is a part of me.
Yeah.
And, I tell people all the time, like, if I don't feel confident in serving it, then why would I want to sell it?
Yep.
Because it's a part of me that I'm providing to you, and it's like, I want you to be, when I'm providing these desserts, I'm also offering like a smile, a sense of happiness, that moment of bliss where you can just be you, and that molten lava brownie,
oh my gosh.
Just nothing else matters in the world, not your taxes,
right.
Not your breakups, not your essay that's due at 2:00 in the morning. Like it's just you in that moment. And that's what I offer.
So if I was to crave your brownies or your baklava, for me, it's the brownies. How do I find you?
So I have, I social media. I have my website with an order page.
Okay.
You could email me, phone calls. Instagram is at Beekeep Baking Co.
Okay.
Website is thebeekeep.com. And there is a Facebook page, but I'm slowly integrating that also.
Last question. Do you have any special message that you want to share with our listeners who are now in 45 different countries?
I would say my message to everyone that's listening, keep pursuing your dreams. As cheesy as that sounds, it's like, don't be afraid to turn those ideas into a reality, because once you do, it opens up so many doors and so many opportunities and so many memories to create with people that you never even thought that could like enrich your life in ways that you never thought possible. And that only happens if you have the courage and you have that commitment to yourself to take that first step towards like a better life of your choosing. Because you're choosing to take that step. You're choosing to pursue that dream. The events that I've done, like the farmers markets I've done, the pop-up events that I've done, you'll have people that come up to you and this looks inspiring. How do I get to where you are? And then like you open up that door for them. Now you're stretching the story further.
Great advice. And finally, I want to give a shout out to Emma. She introduced me to you.
Oh, Emma's so fantastic.
Very energetic, very connected. Just really appreciate that. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to before we close?
Oh, you know what? Actually, there's one other person. I want to give a shout out to Vanessa also.
Okay.
Because she's been there like Emma, like at the beginning.
I love it.
Yeah, right hand man. Just all of us were just kind of going through turning the ideas into a reality, essentially.
Wow.
The moment that you start accepting the support around you, you realize the true strength that you have within others.
Yep.
And it's silly not to lean on that when it's available to you.
Oh, that's really great. Well, thank you again, Felicity, for being a guest on our show. I appreciate your stories and your connection and your passion and your purpose.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate all of that. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. Follow us on Facebook. Find our website in the show notes. Subscribe on Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen. Leave a comment with 5 stars and stay tuned for the next episode of Voice4Chefs.